Hello and welcome to another Brawl video. This week we're tackling the Goyf deck, a black, red and green mid-range deck that tries to set up its graveyard with as many card types as possible to grow its various Lhurgoyf creatures. Classic example being Tarmogoyf, a 2-mana creature with power equal to the number of card types among cards in all graveyards, toughness equal to that number +1. So in this deck, Tarmogoyf can grow up to a 9/10 without any help from our opponent, as we have all 9 card types, and those include Planeswalker, Instant, Creature, Kindred, as well as lands, enchantments, artifact, battle, and sorcery. And if we take a look at our deck breakdown, we've got a pretty even split among the less popular types. So we've got 8 instants, 8 sorceries, 8 non-land artifacts, and 3 artifact lands, totaling 11. And then 8 enchantments, 6 planeswalkers, as well as 3 battles. And then Kindred doesn't show up, but if we take a look at the filter here, we can show you that there's 5 Kindred cards in the deck as well. So a pretty nice spread. And that all means that we get to make some huge Tarmogoyfs, which is also relevant with our commander, Disa the Restless, a 5-mana 5/6, saying whenever a Lhurgoyf permanent card is put into our graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, we get to put it on the battlefield instead. So if we happen to mill one of these Lhurgoyf creatures, we get to put it in play instead. And whenever one or more creatures we control deal combat damage to a player, we get to create a Tarmogoyf token. So that token's identical to the 2-mana Tarmogoyf I just showed you, except it's reduced to just being a token, but it's still gonna scale very nicely in this deck and potentially get up to a 9/10. So then if we take a look at our deck breakdown, other than a breakdown by card type, I've split it up according to mana acceleration, ways we have of getting our commander in play ahead of schedule, because the sooner, of course, the better. Then we've got plenty of ways to mill cards into the graveyard to set up our Tarmogoyfs to get as many card types in there as possible, as well as a few ways to discard cards from our hand, which can then also maybe set up Disa. If we discard a Lhurgoyf, then we get to return it to the battlefield instead. And then we've got plenty of removal and interaction, again having a pretty wide range of card types here as well, but those can also help interact with the opponent's plan and maybe clear a path for our creatures to hit the opponent. And then we've got a nice selection of Lhurgoyfs and ways to maybe turn creatures into Lhurgoyfs with a Maskwood Nexus as well. And then finally the miscellaneous section has a few more card draw effects, as well as a Lightning Greaves for Shroud and Haste, which is helpful for immediately attacking with our commander, and then a few more cards that maybe have several card types, because of course if one card can have several card types at once, it makes it much easier to enable our goyfs to get quite large. So then if we take a look at our detailed breakdown now, starting with mana acceleration, Dark Ritual's an excellent way to get our commander in play ahead of schedule. Then we've got many 1-mana accelerants like Birds of Paradise, Delighted Halfling, Elvish Mystic, the Ignoble Hierarch, and Llanowar Elves, and even Deathrite Shaman with plenty of fetch lands to enable it can consistently make additional mana as well. Fanatic of Ronas is not going to have any difficulty making 4 mana in this deck. We've got Farseek, which can get our various dual lands as well. Lotus Cobra, again excellent with our fetch lands to generate additional mana. Then Arcane Signet is the best of these 2-mana artifacts. Then the Firdok Core is a Kindred artifact, so that's 2 pretty rare types. And it's also a Changeling, so it also counts as a Lhurgoyf. So if we happen to mill it with Disa in play, we get to return it to the battlefield, which is pretty sweet. Chandra can also deal 4 damage to opposing creatures, or can generate 2 additional red mana. And then the I Still Explore is perfect, especially with a fetch land, which we can then rebuy over and over. And milling a card with a landfall is especially synergistic in this deck, so that can also help grow our goyfs. And then we've got some more self-mill and other discard effects, starting with Entomb, which is a very direct way of putting one specific creature in our graveyard. So with Disa in play, we simply entomb a goyf and get it back. Then there's Faithless Looting to draw 2, discard 2, can also flash it back. The Beastie, an artifact creature, so 2 types once again, and can also mill a card each turn. And with Delirium it can start attacking and blocking as a 3/3. The Ripples of Undeath can also mill 3 cards, can maybe put 1 in hand. Fear of Missing Out also has Delirium, which we can pretty easily enable in this deck, so we can take an additional attack step, maybe generate 2 goyfs in 1 attack, and then it's also an enchantment creature, so that's once again 2 types. Invasion is one of our few battles, can also discard and then draw 2. And Dredger's Insight is an enchantment that will mill 4, and then we get to return a creature, artifact, or land to our hand. got Malevolent Rumble, milling 4, returning any permanent among those back to our hand, and also makes a spawn token, which can also help us ramp. Morgan's Eyes is a kindred enchantment, so once again 2 pretty rare types, and if we do happen to cast it instead of milling it, it can still surveil 1 each turn, which is also helpful. Grim Flayer is also excellent with Delirium, getting up to a 4/4 Trampler, and then if it hits the opponent we get to surveil 3 once again. Grisly Salvage can mill the top 5, revealing a creature or land to put in hand. There's the Invasion of Argamon, another battle, can discard to draw and then make a treasure, so it also helps us ramp. Mesmeric Orb can do a lot of milling, equal to the number of tapped permanents we untap each turn, so that can also get out of hand. And then Buried Alive might be the most powerful in this section if we have a Disa in play, because we can now put 3 Lhurgoyfs in our graveyard and get them all back, so that can set up some powerful synergies with Pyrogoyf especially. Then Liliana the Last Hope can also mill 2 and get a creature back with a -2, or can maybe take out 1 toughness creatures with a +1. Then there's the Overlord, which can also mill 4 when it enters, can also get creatures back that we already had in the graveyard to begin with, as well as Planeswalkers. And then Ren and 7 can also mill additional cards with the +1, kind of a mulch effect, and then the 0 ability can maybe put extra lanes in play, or we can just make a huge Tree Folk token, which also scales with the number of lanes we control. Then our removal includes some instant speed spot removal here with Fatal Push, and then of course a Lightning Bolt in red. Tarfire is a kindred instant, so that also has good synergy here. And then we've got a few discard effects with Inquisition of Kozilek and the classic Thoughtseize. And then at 2 mana, Bitter Triumph can also deal with Planeswalkers. Invasion is another battle to make the opponent sacrifice a creature or Planeswalker. We've got Toxic Deluge as our only real sweeper. Liliana of the Veil can make the opponent sack a creature or make each player discard a card, which can also maybe make us discard a goyf to then get it back. Call Against Command is just a versatile removal spell that can also hit opposing artifacts. Could technically target ourselves as well to make us discard a card if we have a goyf we want to get back. Then there's a Grist, a legendary planeswalker that also counts as a creature when it's not on the battlefield, so that's once again multiple types, and then can also destroy creatures with a -2 or make additional tokens with a +1 while milling, so it kind of does double duty here. And then Binding the Old Gods can also destroy opposing non-land permanents and ramp us with Chapter 2, and then Casualties of War can also be a blowout if you can select multiple permanents. Then we move on to our actual Lhurgoyfs. At 1 mana there's Nethergoyf, which only tracks our own graveyard, but that's usually good enough. And we could also escape it out of the graveyard, so we can maybe get it back if we exile a few cards. We've got the classic Tarmogoyf. Barrogoyf is just a Goyf with Death Touch and Lifelink that can also mill additional cards if it hits the opponent and maybe get a creature back. The Chomping Changeling is another Changeling, so technically also a Lhurgoyf, can destroy an artifact or enchantment when it enters. Terravor scales with a number of lands in all graveyards, whereas Necrogoyf scales with a number of all creatures instead. And then we've got Pyrogoyf, which is the most powerful of these for sure, as it can deal damage equal to its power whenever a Lhurgoyf enters the battlefield, so that can also trigger multiple times. And then we've got Maskwood Nexus, turning all our creatures in the whole deck into Lhurgoyfs, so now whatever creature we mill we can also return with Disa. And then Altar of the Goyf is also perfect here, has a kindred artifact that's also a Lhurgoyf, so if we mill it with Disa we get to return it, and then whenever a creature we control attacks alone it gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of card types among cards in all graveyards, and Lhurgoyf creatures we control also have trample, since sometimes they do get chum blocked even if they're very large. And then our miscellaneous section has Bitter Blossom, a kindred enchantment, so once again 2 rare types, can make a fairy rogue each turn. Renin 6 is also great with all our fetch lanes, which we can then get back with a +1. We've got the Lightning Greaves for haste and shroud. Black Market Connections can draw cards or make treasure each turn, can also make a Shapeshifter, which is another Lhurgoyf. And then the Swarmweaver is perfect for setting up Disa on the following turn, since we'll easily be able to attack with flying insect tokens to hit them, and then make a Goyf. And then of course the insects will likely also have Death Touch, since we can easily set up Delirium, the Swarmweaver also having 2 different card types. And then Winter is another Delirium payoff, can draw 2 cards each turn, and then reduce the opponent's hand size potentially down to 0, so they'll have to discard down to 0 cards each turn as well. And then our mana base has a nice mix of fetchable lands, including all the shock lands and surveil lands in each color pair, Plenty of fetch lands, of course, to enable landfall and to combine with cards like Renan 6. And then we also have one of each of the artifact lands, which are again 2 different types in our graveyard potentially, although of course they do have the risk of getting blown up by artifact removal. And then a few utility lands here. Arena of Glory can also be a way of giving Disa haste, so we can immediately make a goyf if there's no blocker. The channel lands, especially Takenuma, is helpful in filling the graveyard. Boseiju can also deal with artifacts and enchantments. And the Shifting Woodland we can also easily enable to maybe turn into another permanent that's already in the graveyard. And then we've got plenty of mana fixing, including Urborg and Yavimaya, which can also turn all lands into forests or swamps. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Alright, we're on the play, facing Ajani, one of the strongest commanders out there. So, yeah, I mean, my hand's not bad. Got elves to maybe set up a turn 2 core. Forest is fine. And a Ragavan from our opponent, so yeah, that's no joke. So now do I maybe prefer playing Fear of Missing Out? I think so. So we have a blocker back. Even though Core now can set up Disa next turn, although I wouldn't be triggering it right away. It does allow me to maybe discard Paragoyf with Fear to then get it back. Alright, fine. They can have one Ragavan hit. And there's Ajani. So not waiting to exile something with Ragavan first. And they exiled a Dredger's Insight. And Galvanic Blast their own cat token, so they can immediately transform Ajani. And that can now take out Llanowar Elves as well. Yeah, that's a problem. So I could play Paragoyf and at least deal with Ajani. That's still decent.
Evil thrives unchecked.
Opponent added instant in their graveyard. Paladin class is acceptable. And Inti. So we can hold off on attack this turn. Discarding Morkan's Eyes would add Enchantment and Kindred to the graveyard, so that's a lot of types. I think I prefer that over Winter for now. Okay. And then I'm just gonna play defense for a turn. Delirium is enabled. And now opponent can replay Ajani. Still have a mana left.
What a beautiful day, brother.
Veteran's acceptable. Maybe next turn they can sacrifice it to help transform Ajani, although I guess it only transforms of cats dying. So yeah, for now just take 2. And draw Tarmogoyf. So that's interesting, because I could now maybe attack with Paragoyf, have them jump with a cat to transform Ajani, and then Tarmogoyf triggering Paragoyf can finish it off. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting thought. Then it would sort of make sense to play Disa first, but in this case we don't want to. Yeah, either way I think we attack. And we'll see how they block. Either way I can go Winter plus Tarmogoyf this turn. So our opponent does indeed jump with a cat, so mission accomplished. And Ajani transforms. I bet they're willing to jump with another creature to protect it. Although I guess if they double block, then I can't finish it off anymore. So maybe that's a bit greedy. Because yeah, they would probably double block instead of jump. Although that's again risky if we have instant speed removal too. I'll just play it safe. I think we're far enough ahead here Even though our opponents could technically replay Ajani next turn, thanks to the Mox Amber and the legendary Eenti or Ragavan enabling it. Sword the Lhurgoyf. Means they now don't have it to answer Disa. And Winter's gonna draw us additional cards. And is also gonna force the opponent to discard their hands once we get enough types in the graveyard. And a Leosaur on Ragavan. Sure. They don't have the best attack. We'll get to draw 2. And draw another Goyf and a Liliana. So it's gonna be Disa, attack, see what happens. And if one creature hits, we get another Goyf. Our opponent can jump and then create a hero roll. Yeah, we get a Goyf. Goyf attacks again. And we've got more Goyfs. And yeah, with the extra attack, we got to trigger Disa twice. So our opponent's got a lot of stuff to work through. Replays Ajani. And draw with Winter. Find a lightning bolt. So maybe start with Liliana minus. And then lightning bolt could once again finish off Ajani. But our opponent could just be dead. Attack all out. Triple jump. And damage happens. And our opponent is dead before we even get the extra attack. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Lonis, the Cryptozoologist. So, opponent's gonna make a lot of tokens. Our hand's promising with the turn 1 birds. And Lotus Cobra. Just need to fill the graveyard some more. So play Cobra, and then I can still play the Fear. And then discard the Vault of Whisper, so we have lands and artifact in the graveyard already. So next turn we could play Disa. Yeah, sounds good. And then by attacking, I will generate a Tarmogoyf. Still pretty small, but it's not going to take long to get bigger. Lhurgoyf could also take out Lonis. Steelseeker's a nice creature alongside it, getting to put additional lands in hands pretty consistently. Hopefully they can't answer Disa here. Opponent just getting a Surveil land. So now what I could do is Invasion, discard the Lhurgoyf to get it back for free, essentially. Unless they have a free counterspell left. Take out Lonis. And then I can still Surveil. Could get lucky and enable Delirium. Shifting Woodlands doesn't seem like an amazing draw. And then do I care about transforming this? Could be another discard outlet, I suppose. So we'll send maybe Disa at the invasion, and the rest can go face. Make another Lhurgoyf, and that'll trigger Lhurgoyf as well. Well, we'll see if our opponent can deal with this board. It's a lot of stuff, and it's only turn 4. And this sign to a fetch land. A Reclamation Sage. Doesn't have too many targets. I guess it can take out the fear. And your opponent seems pretty dead here. Draw a Malevolent Rumble, which should be able to set up Delirium for us, and our opponent scoops it up. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Sauron, Grixis control. This is gonna be a tough matchup. My hand's not amazing. If I had a fetch land, it would have been quite good with Renin 6 to get those back. And then another Planeswalker that's maybe harder for the opponent to interact with. As it currently stands, the Renin 6 is just plussing on nothing. And I'm missing black mana. So I think I mulligan this. Alright, turn 1, birds or elves. Bitter Triumph can at least deal with Planeswalkers. And now Thoughtseize is excellent. See what you're working with. Alright, opponent had their own Thoughtseize, which, you know, is not super effective right now. Prismari Command also an answer to Mesmeric Orb. Damnation's probably the most threatening right now. And then essentially 3 lands. So probably take the Damnation. Play birds and surveil. And then expect him to probably still Thoughtseize here. Or they could just get the Talisman down. Okay. So then this is my opportunity for either Disa or Lhurgoyf. I actually think we Disa, because then if they Thoughtseize a Lhurgoyf without reading Disa, they'll get punished. And they currently don't seem to have an answer for my commander. Another Talisman, so they're just ramping into Sauron. And Thoughtseize, we'll see if they are tempted by the Lhurgoyf. But that would be a mistake. Ooh, yep. Just a 1-2, but we still get it back. And our opponent scoops it up. Yeah, that'll teach you, Sauron. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the play, facing Roxanne. It used to be quite a nuisance a while ago. It's been a while since we faced it. Still a very powerful commander. That being said, we've got a reasonable start. Halfling can set up turn 2 Liliana. And then, yeah, hopefully an early Disa, and then we can discard Tarmogoyf to Liliana to get it for free. And Tomb can maybe get a Lhurgoyf. So we'll see. For now, get Overgrown Tomb. Although Forest would also work. Since a halfling can fix for black. Play a Liliana. And since they didn't have a turn 1 elf, maybe just discard the bolt for now.
Those who get in my way tend to regret it. Drop it.
And Brawler's gone. Signets. Okay, so this turn probably just play the Tarmogoyf. So I can enable Disa next turn. And then I don't think I want to plus Liliana since I like both my cards. Taravor can go in the graveyard, I guess. Or I can keep it. So next turn I can play Disa, and the turn after maybe plus Liliana to get it for free. Yeah, bit of a long shot, I guess, but we'll try. Opponent loots. So next turn they can play Roxanne and deal with the halfling at least. And Goyf gets bigger as our opponent discarded an enchantment. Okay, so this is going to be a pretty sweet turn. Play Disa. Plus Liliana first in case we grow Tarmogoyf even more.
Don't overthink things.
Get a free Taravor. Hit you for 6, make another Goyf. And next turn I can entomb to get one more. And there's Roxanne. Can -2 Liliana to clear a path. Taravor answered. Alrighty, so entomb. Could have gone for Ice Still first since we had a fetch line to get back. But yeah, I think the game's over here. Make you sack Roxanne, attack, trigger Disa, make another Goyf, trigger Paragoyf. And that should be game. I guess we could still technically play the Ice Still. But there we go, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a promising hand. Missing an exciting turn 1 play, but between Salvage and Rumble we can set up our Grimflayer quite nicely, which can then set up our graveyard even more. Opponent with Celes, so they're also looking to set up their graveyard. For now we surveil. And Stomping Ground's fine. That way I can prioritize creatures with Rumble and Salvage. And we already have a land for Delirium. Opponent with a Talisman. Draw Furnace. So maybe we Rumble instead of Salvage, since that can maybe set up Disa next turn. And the Llanowar Elves is probably what we want. Adding Planeswalker, Enchantment and Kindred in the graveyard, even an instant. So Grimflayer is online. And our Goyfs are huge now. Alright, definitely keep Buried alive, don't need anything else. So Paragoyf is 6-7 at the moment. Can clear a path. But if we can go Disa, hit them with Grimflayer, that would be nice too. Alright, opponent did have a Day of Judgment sadly, so that's gonna reset things. Could still just Paragoyf face. And then force them to jump next turn when we play Disa. Yeah, I don't hate it. Our opponent's already down to 10. They do have another answer, could have also wiped the board once again. And a Thunderkite. I believe this got nerfed at some point, but still pretty ridiculous. So what's next? I guess we can try to play Disa, hope she survives, and then next turn Buried Alive can be pretty crazy. Or we can Grizzly Salvage, hope to find something. Let's go with Disa. Although our opponent's shown that they're packing a lot of removal. For now, Celes. Discarding 2. So 4 cards in hand. I guess they discarded 3. And a Goblin Bombardment, so no clear answer to Disa, but they can chump. And then use the tokens as additional sacrifice fodder, so may as well block. So yeah, this Buried Alive is looking good. Shifting Woodlands. I wouldn't be able to activate and still Buried Alive, otherwise we could copy the Lhurgoyf first. But yeah, I think we still bury. And then get some goyfs. So we've got Llanowar, Lhurgoyf. And we could go Necrogoyf, although this could enable the opponent's synergies. I guess a Chomping Changeling can destroy their enchantment as well. So that's a good one. Could also get a Nethergoyf if we suspect more removal, so we can at least get it back. Llanowr's not huge right now, so maybe I do like the Nethergoyf a bit more. Get them all back. Destroy your Goblin Bombardments. And go ahead and attack. So they pretty much need another board wipe. Opponent takes it, so we get another Goyf token. Opponent's down to 4. And a Deathrite Shaman's okay. Can find it with a salvage. And our opponent scoops it up. Awesome. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Extus, a Mardu token and sacrifice deck. Our hand is reasonable, although, again, our opponent being on tokens makes it harder for Disa to connect, and Invasion may also not be very effective. So, yeah, maybe I can do better, actually. Alright, well, this has potential. Ren and 6, great at dealing with 1 toughness creatures. We have Explorer plus Fetch Land. Dark Ritual to set up maybe an explosive opening. So sign me up. I probably still want to fetch a red source so we can set up Ren and 6 turn 2. So then I don't have a play on turn 1. That's alright. I can play the fetch, can postpone my decision. And then maybe turn 3 we can ritual into Disa. And Tomb's also kind of exciting. But yeah, we'll stick to the plan, go for Ren and 6. And then I can maybe combo Disa with Entomb in the same turn to get a free Goyf. Hidden Stockpile for starters. Okay, so yeah, I could go for Disa, but waiting for the Entomb might be better. So this could be an Overlord turn, could play another Goyf, or we can Grizzly Salvage. All reasonable. Yeah, I guess we get a little another Goyf down. So we can maybe immediately enable Disa. Opponent's gonna path, so we do get an extra land here. Okay, so I'm down to go Disa plus Entomb. Can also I still replay the fetch. So we need to Dark Ritual, play Disa, and then still Entomb. Seems fine to me. Can keep the Entomb up at instant speed, so I can maybe get a Pyrogoyf if we need removal here. Although currently the graveyards are Not particularly full yet. Opponent plays an Opportunist. Okay. So currently we just have Instant and Creature in the graveyard. I think I still Entomb. And then get Pyrogoyf. Or we can go for Barrogoyf, which can attack into their blocker as well. Which also sounds reasonable. Sure. Get it back. And then now we can do a bunch of things, including I still fetch land twice, won't be able to Binding. So maybe we prioritize Binding on the Opportunist. Opponent can maybe sacrifice it in response. Village Rights. Could have also used a stockpile, I guess. Alright, and then we can fetch, growing the Barrogoyf, attack. I guess I don't quite have another swamp to get to play Grizzly Salvage, that's alright. Mill 3. Get a Tarmogoyf, which I can still play. Could have also just let Disa get it back, I suppose. And get back another land. Okay, so next turn we can also ultimate Ren and 6. Our opponent's got a lot of problems they need to deal with. So we could Emblem, add Planeswalker to the graveyard. And then I can just Entomb with Retrace to get Pyrogoyf. Get it back with Disa. Target the Witch, paying 3. Attack, make another Goyf token, trigger Pyrogoyf again, and our opponent should just be dead here. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Ashling the Limitless, so evoke elementals. Want to preserve a fetch land for Fatal Push, and then we've got a pretty nice hand. So fetch lands aplenty. Turn 2 we could Farseek, and then turn 3 maybe Barrogoyf, and then push Ashling. Opponent's got an Up the Beanstalk, so that can provide a lot of value if the game ends up being quite grindy. Which, yeah, it might be. Kolaghan's Command. I don't expect too many artifacts that I need to destroy. 2 damage is not enough for Ashling, so I think we can do better. Alright, let's go ahead and Farseek. Get another Surveil. And Swamp can maybe go at this point. Alright, opponent has a Nissa, which we can also Fatal Push. Tarfire's not quite enough to deal with it. So that seems fine, can get a Mountain. Play a Barrogoyf and Fatal Push with Revolts. So Barrogoyf of 4/5. And then Tarfire can add another type. Okay, Roaming Throne could have been an artifact for Kolaghan's Command, I suppose. But if I go for Disa, Roaming Throne has to chump or we get another Goyf. Seems worth a try. Mill 4. And get Deathrite back. And now our goyfs are 6-7. Ashling into Hierarch. And no evoke. And yeah, opponent's already just too far behind on board. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Rofellos, so green ramp. We can turn 1 birds, turn 2 call against commands to answer it. The rest of my hand's not great, admittedly. So is it good enough? I think I try it. We have a lot of author interaction we can draw. Mox Amber. So this is the only way we can get the birds down. So it's possible they could have a protection spell left. Now Toxic Deluge gives us another answer eventually. So I could destroy the Mox, or I can make them discard a card. I guess I take out the Mox. That works. Selvala. And black market connections, so we can play this to maybe get ahead on cards. So then the Deluge is going to be less of a setback for us. And look for more interaction. Rofellos is back. Okay, we'll make a treasure and draw a card. Making a 3-2 was also a consideration, but I probably want a Deluge for 3 here. I guess would have drawn a card of Selvala. But yeah, looking at my hands, we absolutely need to deal with Rofellos. And then wouldn't be able to do much else, can still fetch for a Surveil land. And now we've got a nice card draw engine at least. Swarmweaver is enabled, so we'll give our tokens Death Touch. Okay, in response to the burgeoning, we can Surveil. I guess it's whenever an opponent plays a land, so fetching would not have really affected things. Okay, so we'll keep making treasure and drawing cards for now. Does not look like our opponent has additional lands in hand anyway. So, happy enough just playing Disa. Although going for Swarmweaver first is also reasonable, since it can set up Disa in the first place. Alright, I might want to slow down the life loss and just pick one mode now. Find another goyf. So we could alter off the goyf here as well, which would be pretty fun. And then still play another goyf. That hits for 10, make a goyf token. We have Urborg. So our opponent is potentially staring down lethal. And they scoop it up. Awesome. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing the Infamous Cruelclaw. So they're gonna try to cheat some expensive cards into play if they can hit us. So ideally we have some removal to take it out. Instant speed removal would be best. Turn 1 Inquisition, turn 2 Grimflayer. May not quite do it. So I'll take a mulligan. Alright, I think we'll try this. Missing interaction, but got a lot of acceleration to try and get Disa down, and then we've got the Buried Alive combo. So that's going to be worth something. Could have also saved myself the damage. And next turn gone, Arcane Signet plus Hierarch anyway. But I might draw another 1 or 2 drop I can cast. And now Grist also an answer to the Cruelclaw. Opponent had a Fatal Push anyways. Turn to Magda. Alright, still gonna play the Signets. And that's gonna be an Emperor of Bones next. Could be pretty annoying against us since it'll exile stuff from our graveyard and shrink down our goyfs. Speaking of which, Paragoyf was an excellent draw. Yeah, I think we play that now, take out the Emperor. And then we're maybe in a position to set up Disa next turn. And there's a Cruelclaw with a mana left. Opponent passes the turn. Alright, so if I go for Disa, fetch land's not gonna affect things. At least we force him to chump with Cruelclaw or trade. So that seems reasonable. Grist is also an option, but I think Disa has the higher upside. I guess what they could do is chump with Magda, and then we don't get a goyf, Paragoyf doesn't trigger, Cruelclaw can hit me next turn. But then we also set up Buried Alive, so if they don't get lucky on Cruelclaw, we should just win the game. So I'm okay with that. So we'll just fetch. Mountain's fine. Play Disa. And wow, opponent let us hit them. So now we get to just take out Cruelclaw for free. So that was surprising. If we play Maskwood first, then Buried Alive can get any creature and put it in play with Disa, even if it's normally not a Lhurgoyf. But I think just going for the Lhurgoyfs is still good enough. We'll see. I guess getting some sort of token generator, like the Swarm Weaver, would be pretty sick with Paragoyf. Because then, yeah, we would get to trigger it a whole bunch of times. But yeah, opponent scoops it up. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw, facing Tataru Taru. And what do we think of our hands? The mana's not perfect, but I guess we have all 3 colors. Yeah, I'll give it a shot. Wouldn't be able to play the invasion on turn 2. Probably need to rumble to hit some more land drops. And then ideally find a fetch land for Renin 6. If I draw a card, our opponent gets the treasure. So, tough call. Sure, I guess we'll draw a card. Play a Rumble over Thoughtseize, and then probably still want to land in case something bad happens to Renin 6. The arena does enter tapped right now. Discard to hand size. Could just add a battle to the graveyard, since we might struggle to do that later. Or I can go for Artifact and Kindred. Could see the Trample being useful if our opponent makes a bunch of tokens at some point. So yeah, let's get rid of the invasion. Now Arcane Signets. Our goal is just to get Disa in play and then cast Buried Alive. Alright, opponent's gonna get Lost or token. Not gonna sack it, so we get map tokens. Terravor the draw. So Renin 6, get back my land, and then I can still Thoughtseize. I guess I can grab the Tree of Tales if I want an untapped land, but I may want additional red mana. I'll leave the artifact in the graveyard for now. Okay, so a lot of control tools. Elspeth makes tokens. Builder's Talent can get stuff back. Probably just take the split up for now. And that's kind of what I mentioned with Altar being useful to get past any potential tokens. Dark Ritual is quite the card. So they don't necessarily have an answer to my commander. So I could try to play Disa this turn, and then next turn we get to Buried Alive. I already have a bunch of goyfs in hand, admittedly, but there's still going to be plenty I can find. So, yeah, I think I'm down. And then I could also ping a token if I don't necessarily want to get the land back. So our opponent's going to let us draw 2 cards, which will also make them a treasure. And a Builder's Talent. Okay, so Buried Alive is looking good. So we can bury and get a whole bunch of goyfs. Definitely Paragoyf. The Changeling should be good. And then I guess Nethergoyf. Since we have a bunch in hands, Necrogoyf is not particularly large. Yeah, I think it is the Changeling here. Get them all back. And then what to destroy? Probably the Signet. Probably could have gotten 1 more damage if the Chomping Changeling entered after the Paragoyf. Either way, 6 damage can deal with a wall. And then by hitting the opponent we get another goyf. And then can I just finish off my opponent? Not quite. So I can deal with Tataru Taru. Attack my opponent. And then deal with Elspeth. Could have maybe taken out the Planeswalker first to deal even more damage with the goyfs. And then, do we halfling or do we use the map? Opponent could have drawn into a sweeper, so let's try this. Find a survey land. And then get Mortuary back with Renin 6, so we keep the artifact land in the graveyard. And then I could discard Baragoyf to hand size and still trigger Paragoyf. Yeah, that's pretty sweet. Probably could have just taken them out if I went face with everything. And our opponent's now going to punish us with a Sunfall. That's rough. Alright, so how do we rebuild? Can a Renin 7 make a token? They'll still be able to take out a Renin 6. But the goal here is maybe to set up a huge Trampler with Altar of the Goyf. The Overlords can get back just a regular Tarmogoyf. We do have the Arena for haste, so that's relevant. But can't set up a hasty Disa. Terravor's pretty small. What do we think of a hasty Overlord? That sounds kind of appealing. And get Tarmogoyf back. And get a Liliana back. Points at 8. And do I play an elf? The halfling here. And get back a cemetery at this point. Okay, and then discards 1 card. Can make it maybe the mortuary. Builder's Talent can maybe get back a Planeswalker eventually. Conquers Death, exiles the Overlord. And a Maskwood Nexus is pretty nice too. Still have a lot of options. Is Altar just lethal? What's our Goyf count? 8? Yeah, that should just do it here with the halfling. Awesome. So yeah, probably could have ended the game a little bit sooner by going face instead of dealing with the opponent's permanents, but yeah, turned out to be a pretty fun game after all. Alright, so we got to see this Junt Goyf deck in action, every mid-range player's dream, and I was quite impressed with Disa. Seems easier to enable than I had imagined at first, between the early mana acceleration, but then also with the Entomb effects. Once we have Disa in play, can also set up some very powerful turns. Buried Alive, of course, being the most powerful way to set it up, and then Pyrogoyf also ending a lot of games. So yeah, quite happy with where this deck ended up. That'll do it for today's gameplay. Wanna thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.